Well, we're back at Ama Del Mar, and today I'm with Elisabeth, who is a content strategist. It flew out of my head. Was that what
Digital
it was?
strategist.
All right, let's try that again. Elisabeth's a digital strategist. We've worked together in a couple different capacities, and I'm really glad you could join me today. You know, a lot of the work we do is documentary style. We do all kinds of stuff, but so it's largely unscripted, which means there's an interview involved. And you are an expert interviewer. Could you tell me a little bit about your background and how, what makes you a good interviewer?
Sure. So I actually started in documentary film production myself. Used to do freelance production work, independent production work. But I've also am trained as an ethnographic researcher. And so a lot of where and kind of a journalist of sorts. So studied communications in various capacities, as well as sort of from a sociological lens.
Can you describe that more, that ethnographic approach, for people that aren't familiar with it?
Sure. So really, it's a documentation process that instead of sort of this anthropological lens where you're just sort of observing from the outside and you have this sort of cold distance to someone, that you're engaging in a conversation that is about the life conditions of a person, that is about their motivations and their interests, and that really sort of tries to follow a through line and find their story.
What you're saying really strikes home with me, because it's like, we always talk about trying to tell a story holistically. We're working with nonprofits a lot. People are receiving services, and there's this idea that we're going to show them as someone who receives services, ask the questions necessary to get those answers, and that's it. And it's not compelling, it's not respectful, it's not anything. So what you're saying really makes sense to me. Yeah. How do you prepare someone for that?
I think there are a few things that go into successfully preparing someone to be interviewed, as well as an interviewer to prepare. But really, a lot of this is maybe even having a pre-interview with that person if you have the luxury of time. And it doesn't have to be the same person that's conducting the interview when you're filming, but someone who can sort of assuage their fears, make them feel comfortable, do a practice run. A lot of people will be really apprehensive about being on camera, which is understandable. Frankly, I am too. But really, it's that making someone feel comfortable and starting a conversation so that they forget that the camera's even there. It's why I really like an ethnographic approach, because you start oftentimes with questions that are not about where you're going. You're starting by warming up, having people talk about themselves a little bit, digging back in. They might not understand at first why you're doing that. And sometimes you have to prepare them ahead of time to say, look, this isn't going to be in the video, but we just need to get started here so that we can get to those questions at the end that are really going to hit home and really going to meet our needs. Oftentimes it means that the last question you ask is the one that gets the best answer. When you open it up and you just ask them to talk about whatever we haven't talked about yet. It's given them time to process in their minds and think about those things that maybe they've been preparing something in their minds to say that doesn't fit exactly what question you've asked them. But I think if you can do that practice interview ahead of time, or that conversation ahead of time that kind of works out some of the scaries, it can really go a long way.
That's all great. I mean, that all really resonates with me, especially the idea that that last question is the best one, because, and probably for the reason you said, I don't know, but I've definitely found that like, what should I have asked you that I didn't ask you is you all of a sudden get, from somebody who was barely talking, you get this 10-minute answer that's like everything you need.
It's a magic question, because it also gives, it's a space where oftentimes if you've given people, and it's great to prepare them with questions ahead of time to show, like, here's an idea of some of the things we'll be asking. Prepare them, you might go off script. Yes. But if you have that last question, there are things that they've thought about that they want to say that they aren't necessarily warmed up or primed to say, and they might not feel like it's a direct answer to one of your questions. If you give them that space, sometimes they'll take it to all sorts of places, but you wish they would have gone a long time ago, but it doesn't matter, you got the content.